it's always interesting when you want to talk about mental health. You always notice people sit in the back, afraid they're going to get called upon. I'm going to actually take everything right down there, but I can't because of the lights, or I'd be right in the center of you. Because sometimes we do what with mental health? We don't want to talk about it. It's something that maybe, well, it's just better left unsaid. But the problem is, internally, it's not quiet, is it? If you struggle with anxiety or struggle with depression, you know the most of it's in one place. It's right in here. So the people around you may not know that there's anything happening, but you do. And the problem with our we're not talking about mental illness. I've dealt with schizophrenia, I've dealt with bipolar personality disorder, manic 1, 2. I've dealt with gondic disorder, antisocial personality disorder. I've worked with men and women coming out of federal prison that are pretty on the antisocial scale. Pedophiles, sexual molesters. That's mental illness. What we're talking about today is mental health. Because really, if we look at it, our lives must be in balance. When I first started my doctorate at Asbury Seminary, I had my cohort of men that I was studying with. I had to give my presentation for my dissertation. I stood up and I said, I have a confession to make. I'm a therapist. And the typical response, well, we're going to have psychology and therapy in the church. I said, wait, stop. What happens when your life gets out of balance physically? What happens when your life gets out of balance emotionally? What happens when it gets out of balance spiritually? All we're doing is talking about what happens mentally when your life gets out of balance. How do you bring it back into balance? How do you find that balance that makes you just feel good? When I would work with teens, I spent 20 years working with teens in residential care. I usually would work with the kids nobody else could work with. The hard ones, the tough ones, the crazy ones. And so I'd sit down and do my intake, and I do my application process and get everything worked out, and I would say to them, I have a couple of very interesting clinical questions to ask you. Yeah, what is it? I said, are you stupid? Hey, man, I ain't stupid. Quit calling me stupid. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm asking you if you see yourself as stupid. I ain't stupid. Okay, good. That's because if you're stupid, you're a hard person to work with. You know how hard it is to work with stupid people? Second question, are you crazy? What do you mean crazy? Well, should you be sent to a psychological hospital and kind of get some, I ain't crazy, man. Okay, that's great, because if you're not stupid, you're not crazy, then why are you here? And I had them. Well, usually it's because of behavior, usually it's choices that we make. Do you know that sometimes we can make choices that can impact our mental health? We can make choices that actually bring on our own anxiety. We can make choices that move us deeper into depression. So why would we do that to yourself? Why would we do that? So if you don't mind, we're at a church, and thank you, Hilltop, for allowing us to do this here. We just want to serve the community. We just want to address things that we all need, sometimes don't talk about, we need to address. So would you please just open with me in prayer? Father, we just give you this time here today. We thank you, Lord, for the sacredness of this land that you called and ordained as a church. We praise you, Lord, that you continue to meet with your people, continue to walk with them, Lord, and show them how to be healed, how to be whole. And I pray, Lord, that you will just minister to us today in only the way you can. Amen. So as you look at it, this is our topic today, unpacking anxiety and depression. So last Sunday I used this as an example. Let's say that anxiety or depression is in this bag. If it's anxiety, you don't want anyone to see what's in here. I better keep it hidden because people don't understand. You keep stuffing things in there because, this is your anxiety. No, don't touch it. This is mine. I'm trying to work through it. No, leave me alone. But the problem is sometimes you get it so full, and what happens? Explodes out, and all the stuff comes tumbling out on the ground. You ever have that happen to you at an airport? I have. 50-pound bag, duffel bag, got slit down the entire side by the machine. All my kids' stuff, because they're missionaries, everything spilled out on the floor. It kind of creates some crisis when you get on a plane. And that's what we're embarrassed when everything spills out and people see that we're struggling and people see there's anxiety. We want people to know. We want to stuff everything back in the bag. And that's going to happen to you if you don't unpack it. We got to open that bag. We got to take it out. We got to look at why the anxiety is there. Where did it come from? Why do I continue to hold on to it? What can I do to keep my bag empty? Or maybe you get depressed and you think, okay, I don't want anyone, I'm going to keep stuffing stuff in this bag. I'm going to stuff it. I'm going to stuff it so full. You get it so full that you can't pick it up. And you can't move. And people say, come on out. Get out of the house. Well, no, I got to stay here with my depression. No, really, I want to get out. Come on. Overcome it. No, I want to stay here with my depression. It gets so big you can't take it with you, so you decide just to sit down and hold that bag. And you're just sitting there holding that bag. It's my bag of my depression. So what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack this. And you're unpacking. You may be here because you have someone in your family or someone, a friend that just, how do I help them? Maybe you're here because you have a history of anxiety or depression. When I first did this type of seminar at a church up in Fort Wayne, I asked a simple question. So how many of you here have struggled with anxiety? Anybody? Just be honest about it. Let's be afraid of it. How many have struggled with depression? After I asked that question, the guy in the front row shut up and said, I have bipolar. I said, oh, you do? Yeah, I'm bipolar. I said, I hope you take your meds. I take my meds. And his wife shut up. I'm bipolar too. I said, oh, you're both bipolar and you're married? You better take your medicine. Then after they did that and we kind of talked through that and had some fun with that, a guy back in the back stood up and says, 12 years ago I tried to commit suicide. I never thought I'd stand in a church and say that. Folks, I went down and I hugged that man. I said, thank you for being honest. He says, I didn't think I'd ever stand up. I was so hard. I said, no, you had to get it out 12 years ago and no one had known. These are the struggles that we go through sometimes, and we think we have to go through it alone. We don't have to. How does sometimes your day start? You ever had something that just kind of throws you for a loop? Well, there we go. I get to control this on my phone. Look at this picture. This kid just wanted to go see some animals. He's probably over there at Lake Hartwell Wildlife Safari because he has a Georgia shirt on. All of a sudden, he just wanted to see the animals. All of a sudden, one of them comes up close and personal. What do you think he's feeling right now? You can see on his face, right? All of a sudden, his life has changed. All of a sudden, you think his adrenaline kicking in right now? You think he's thinking objectively, wow, that's such a beautiful mule. I think I'm going to reach out and pet him. What do you think? No, there's nothing objective at all. It's all an emotional reaction to the situation around him. And sometimes we get so caught up in the emotional reaction that we stop learning how to think. I think we'll learn today that a lot of the problems we have start up here. They stay up here, and sometimes we try to end them up here, but really it has to be out here. We have to unpack it. So, let's read these things. Do you hold things in until you explode? Do you feel embarrassed? If your emotions spill out, do you hide feelings and turn things inward? Do you comfort eat, self-harm, have this negative self-talk? Do you wish you could just get free of the anxiety or the depressive mood swings? If you answered a yes to any of those, we're going to kind of unpack that today. The first thing we're going to look at is anxieties, but we're going to really look at 4 key words today: frustration, expectations, frustration, fear, and trauma. If you take most anxiety, it comes back to unfulfilled expectations in some way. So let's kind of look at the next phase here. If we were to think about expectations, we have these objectives. We think things are going to turn out a certain way. So we set goals. We get excited when we get a new job. Then maybe you hate the job. We can use it as an example in marriage. The objective is to have a happy life together, a long life, a long relationship, a loving relationship, but then something will happen. Maybe love cools, conflict happens, divorce comes. I didn't expect this when I got married. And those expectations being unfulfilled and not being true begin to change and impact us. And we begin to react on the emotional level. We think about having a baby. Give birth, you're going to expect to have a happy child, a loving, independent adult, obedient. Then you ever have one with colic? My firstborn, my goodness. We wanted to take her back to the United States. We're in the Dominican Republic doing missionary work and wanted to take her back for everybody to meet him. So at 6 months, she was sleeping through the night. She was a perfect baby. Took her to the United States for a visit. Came back. She did not sleep through the night for 12 straight months. Every night, putting her in my little car. I had a little Peugeot, and I'd drive her around the car seat, get her to sleep, carry her in, put her in the bassinet, cover her with mosquito netting, and tiptoe back to bed. And you know what? She did that entire year until we went on vacation a year later, and then we came back, she slept through the night. I did not expect to lose an entire hour of sleep when I'm running 2 ministries in a foreign country because of a child, but those are unfulfilled, they're just different expectations. Maybe you have a strong-willed child that tested you. Oh, that's the one. I was not that child. That was my older sister. But I don't know about you, but we had a pretty strong-willed family. Anybody else here? Oh, nobody, okay. And maybe you end up with a rebellious teen. Maybe you're single and had expectations. You're not to meet the right person. Maybe you're divorced and think about that the next stage in life. And those expectations are unmet. And it produces something in you. It produces an emotional reaction. Back in the last recession we had, as I was in the midst of community mental health work, the highest level of suicide was among men my age. Because they got forced to retire early. Maybe they lost a lot of their retirement money. Do you think those men went around and talked about it? No, they held it in until the wife would hear a gunshot out in the barn or out in the garage. Go out and find him dead. You see, the things in life will impact us. Oh yeah, I'll be all right. I'll find me another job. No, we tend to internalize it, and the expectations then take us sometimes to a place that we don't want to be. So I want you to look at this little diagram I have down here. Anxiety or depression both produce a frustration. And what is frustration? What is frustration? How would you define it? Oh, this is the interactive part. You can go and give me your... How would you define frustration? Aggravation? Things aren't working. Unfulfilled expectations. And why is it we get so frustrated with it? Yes, expectations. We have an expectation. Dang, it should work out the way I thought it should. Ah, did you just say that out loud? We want to be in control. And so both anxiety and depression will produce frustration, and if that's not dealt with, anger comes out of it. Now, in another slide, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Is frustration one of the spiritual gifts, or fruits of the Spirit? Gentleness, meekness. Wait, frustration. Sometimes we turn frustration into spiritual fruit. Why? Because we all do it. But if it's not a fruit of the Spirit, then what's it a fruit of? Because if we don't watch and cut off the frustration, it'll turn into anger. The problem with anger out of anxiety is it builds toward resentment. But anger and depression goes inward and turns toward rejection. We're going to talk about what that means here in a little bit. Come on, little phone. There we go. Now, anxiety, I have to read it from here. Anxiety makes us alter our days. Our routine changes. It stops us from doing our normal activities or routines. It robs us of our joy. It's based on lies. That's often a reality problem, how we see or understand things. It's not fair. Why me? I deserve. The shoulds and the coulds begin to happen, and we begin to blame God. God is not coming through. God's not listening to my prayers. In our heads, we tend to overthink, work self into an emotional state, and that begins to move out and impact people in our lives around us. It impacts you relationally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. How many of you, when you go get out of your routine, maybe go on vacation, maybe I went on a camping trip and have it rain? Everyone ever go on a camping trip and have it rain and have your tent collapse? Wait, we're going to have a good time out in the woods and go out and just the bugs get you? You couldn't get a fire lit. There's this expectation that increases our what? Frustration, and we get angry. I'm sure when the tent fell in and you started getting wet and everything got wet, you're just praising God. No, we usually get the anger to come out, right? And anxiety tends to pour out on other people because we can't keep it in. So let's look at frustration. It's the inability to be in control. It's a power struggle. This has got to be done right. This is the way it's supposed to be. No, that's just not right. We've got to resolve this. We've got to address this. And working with couples as a marriage therapist, there's always a couple in the fight, right? And when they're fighting, there's the one that says, that's it, I can't take it anymore, and I want to walk away. Don't you walk away from me. Get back in, I want to resolve this right now. Oh, doesn't happen with you guys? Okay, but there's always the one that says, no, I just need some space. Give me some space. No, I don't you dare walk away from me. And that kind of battle comes on. Guess what's happening? That's frustration turning into anger that gets poured out on other people, right? Then they come to counseling. I said, stop chasing each other. You chased her when you caught her. Quit chasing her now because you're mad at her. Here's one trick I give them. I said, listen, I want you each to get a little red flag. I want you to carry in your belt loop or in your pocket. And if it gets to the point where you just can't handle it anymore, you ever see it in an NFL football game where they throw the challenge flag? As soon as they throw that challenge flag, it hits the floor, everything stops. I said, if it's getting too much, you just throw that flag at them. You have to agree that everything stops. You're going to walk away. You're not going to say another word. Then I said, you put 2 chairs up. You got a chair point here and chairs. It's talking chairs. Only thing you do there is you talk. And when you're ready to talk, you go sit in the chair. Oh, she's ready to talk. Well, I'm so mad at her. I'm not going to sit and talk to her. Okay, fine. After 5 minutes, and she gets up and leaves. And he realizes he's being a jerk. She's sitting in the chair. I'll go ahead and he goes down and sits in the chair. He's sitting in the chair. Oh, I guess I'm ready to talk to him. And you actually say, okay, now in this chair, we're going to each talk, but we're not going to fight. In other words, guess what? You have some control over your anger. You can actually control your frustration. It doesn't have to get out of control and impact somebody in your life, impact your relationship. So again, as I ask, this is not a fruit of the Spirit for us to act this way. We are in control of us. When anger shows, it's acted out in anxiety. Frustrations that produce anxiety. Everybody have any problems at family gatherings? Reunions? Weddings? Funerals? I was an addictions therapist and worked with various addictions, a lot of alcohol. And I tell you, all these times, getting someone with an addiction together usually causes a relapse. Another one's holidays. That one guy got out of federal prison. He'd been out, last time he was in was for 18 years. And I got a call from the probation department. I worked the federal cases. And the lady said, well, I don't want to send this guy back to jail, but he tested positive for cocaine. Could you take him in and work him? I said, I'll give him tune-up 10 classes of RDAP, Rehabilitation, Drug and Alcohol Prevention Program. So I brought him in, did the 10 groups. He was mad about it, didn't want to do it. Man, okay. So he goes home, we're done. About a month later, comes in again. Hey, he tested positive for cocaine again. I said, he did. That doesn't make sense. Well, he let me do just some individual work with him. So I get him in and I said, why is it you keep testing positive for cocaine? He says, well, the first time I was at this family funeral, and down in the basement they had lines of cocaine. I was cleaning up after the cocaine, and I must have just gotten some up my nose. Oh, really? Wow. So the second time, he said, well, I was at a family funeral. I said, whoa, that's 2 family funerals. How many funerals have you been to? I've been to 6 since I got out of prison. 6? 3 months after I got out, my mama died. And then uncles and aunts. I said, man, that's a lot of loss. Yeah, it happened when I was in prison, too. My daughter got cancer. And, of course, being in federal prison, I couldn't get out to go to the funeral. So I called my brother, and I said, brother, I know you're a man of God. Would you preach her funeral? And his brother did. And he says, I have a videotape of it. I've been out of prison 2 years, and I still haven't watched it. I said, why haven't you watched it? He says, it's not about seeing my daughter there in the casket, but my brother, who I love more than any of my other siblings, who preached the funeral, he died before I got out of prison, too, about a month before I got out. I can't stand to see him on that. He's alive. He's going to be preaching. I can't watch it. I said, you need to watch that video. I'm not, you want to keep sniffing cocaine and go back to prison. Well, I mean, these are some rough characters, right? He finally gets, all right, I'll watch it. So he comes in the next week. He says, well, I watched it on Sunday. I sat down and watched it. I watched it twice. I said, you did? What was the emotional response? Well, I cried a little bit. Well, okay, it's all right for crying. He said, it was so hard seeing my brother preaching and speaking and knew that I failed him. I wasn't there for my daughter. I wasn't there because I chose a life of crime. I said, understand, don't beat yourself up over it. I said, you need to go to the grave. Oh, I can't go to the grave. It's up in Michigan. I'm in Indiana. You can't cross state lines when you're federal probation. So I called the probation officer up and said, I need to send this man to the graveside. He can't do that. I said, but he's going to have to. It's called a therapeutic intervention. You're going to defy a therapist? Okay, all right. So let him go up there, had him write a letter to his daughter, had him put on the grave, and also one to his brother. And he spent time there just at the graves weeping. He never came back with cocaine. You see, this anxiety, this grief, this pain, this anger that we have in life will come out in some way, like having to self-medicate or eat or do things that are going to make us feel better because it's an emotional response to reality in our life. And your cocaine may be something different. So we try to work things out in our heads. We try to talk about them to other people, and they get tired of hearing us because we then try to steer things around and fix it outside of ourselves as if we are God. But I'm going to tell you, you are not good enough, you are not great enough, you are not God enough to make things work. Let me say that again. You little power brokers, you like always being in control. You are not good enough. You are not great enough. And you are not God enough to change things. Which means you have to give up control. And sometimes what we do, folks, is we turn our anxiety and our depression into an idol. We begin to bow down to it, sacrifice to it, invest time in it, spend time praying about it, thinking about it. We turn it into an idol that we worship because we don't think there's a God big enough to solve our problems. We think we're going to do it ourselves. You can't do that. You're not good enough. And then fear. That picture of the boy there at first, well, he was kind of fearful. He was overtaken by something that so gripped him that he could not think. Have you ever had an experience in your life where just fear took you over? Anybody? I mean, and not only did it take you over, you thought about it for days afterwards, right? Like, why did this happen? Why did this? So what's some of the fear moments that you've had? Anyone willing to share? Silence falls upon the crowd. Say it again. Mm-hmm. Anybody ever been in an automobile accident? How'd that change your life? How often did you have to run that through your mind? How often did you think about it? Maybe have nightmares about it? Anybody here ever been robbed? I was robbed, had two men break into my house overseas, had shotguns. When they saw me, they fired a shotgun at me. I'd already set my life to be willing to die for Jesus Christ. I couldn't figure where the fear came from. It took me 6 months to really process before God. Why was I afraid? I'm ready to die. I had a wife and 2 kids. I didn't ever give them over to the Lord to die for the work of the kingdom. It created a crisis in me. Am I putting my children at risk? Working for God? Should I do that? I had to really work that through and it took me about 6 months to do that. But folks, when your door is busted in and a shotgun is fired inside your house, you don't just say, okay, we got it taken care of. Those type of things, when fear hits and it begins to grow in your life, it takes you over. But again, it can become a god or it can become an idol if you don't watch it. It impacts your exercise, healthy eating, your sleep. And the what ifs start to grow. Anybody here ever struggle with the what ifs? Or the if onlys? Well, if only they would listen to me. Well, if only I could get my daughter to come back. If only my husband would sit down and we begin to live in this almost futuristic way of looking at something. If this would just happen, it would fix everything. Okay, anybody ever done that? The if onlys of life. And what are we doing when we do that? Remember, we get a bag here. Well, if only this happens. Oh, I know, if only this happens. Well, if I can just move this here and then he can see it and maybe this will happen. We're putting everything right here in this bag. We're saying the what ifs of life. One of the things that happens here then with anxiety is resentment. Now, what is resentment? I know there's some people who have some resentment issues. What does resentment look like? What does it taste like? It hurts. See, if your expectation is unfulfilled, anger begins to grow, then you begin to resent the object of your anger. You begin to resent them. So then everything they do, you interpret through the lens of resentment. They're just trying to get back good with me. That wasn't a real apology. And that resentment builds. And if you've ever had resentment build so strong and heavy in your life, you know it is a poison to your relationship. It'll destroy a relationship. So when you get to a point with a couple that are living off the energy of resentment, you can't just resolve it. You got to bring them back from resentment and get them angry at each other again. Like, I don't want you to resent. I want to get you back to just being angry. What? Yeah, you got to get back to being angry. Quit being resentful. You've got to clear up the hot spots and the things that produce the resentment. Let's get down and talk about them. Let's just get you good and angry. Now that we have you angry, let's step back to just being merely frustrated. Because frustrations you can work with, right? But resentment is a poison and will end a lot of relationships. And that's not just relationships in a marriage. Ever with any of your kids? How about a sibling as an adult? So, you know how many times I've worked with people that won't talk to a sibling now if they haven't talked to them for years? Oh my goodness. Because they believe that frustration is one of the fruits of the Spirit. It's okay to be frustrated because you don't know what they did. Oh. See, one of the things we have to deal with is how hard is it to forgive someone? Especially if they've not asked for forgiveness. Unforgiveness is one strong, powerful arm of resentment because we think we deserve it. We think it's ours. No one can take it from us. It's one of the things I have packed away here. And I'm right to be unforgiving. I'm right to be resentful. You don't know what they've done to me. So many times in counseling, people try to convince me that they're right to be wrong. They try to convince me. And what are some of the things, we're going to talk about this a little later, but what are some of the lies we tell ourselves? One of them lies is, well, you just don't understand the situation. Oh, well, that's okay. But instead, we begin to resent help. No, just leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. No, I don't need your input. Well, I think you should go get some help. Talk to a professional. I don't want to get any help. And we begin to resent people trying to get you to let things go or to get on with your life. Why are you stuck in this? Why are you still so mad? Get on with your life. We build up walls. Then people begin to pull away from you. Then you're left stuck inside your head, your mind, where no one seems to understand. And that's one of the great lies from the pit of hell, folks. I tell you, that you think that so hard, you are so right in your anger and frustration and resentment, do you think anyone that's speaking into your life is totally wrong? Even someone you respect. Put yourself in my place as a counselor, as a therapist, and having someone with that kind of anger come into the office. Now, I'd like to tell you that I've never had a couple get in a fight in my office. I'm talking about a fight. It has happened. I'd like to tell you I've never had a teenager just explode and throw anything at me. It has happened because when you push in on some of these deeper issues and start holding people accountable, guess what? Where do you think they take their anger? Whoever's trying to change their mind and their heart. Your mind has to be taken captive by Christ because your mind is one of your worst enemies. You'll work something up in your mind, run it over in your mind, think about it in your mind, obsess about it in your mind, till you think your mind is God. And everything, that's how I see it. No, you have a reality problem. A reality problem when we believe something is right and acts out to be completely wrong, but we don't want to have to accept that because then we have to do what? We got to change. How hard is it for you to change? You know yourself, I don't know you. How hard is it for you to admit you're wrong? Not as hard as it used to be. Good to hear that. But you remember when you always thought you were right? Oh, come on, we're all teenagers here. Our parents didn't know anything back at a certain time. We thought we knew more than them. You ever heal a relationship by going back and honestly from the heart, putting your fear, putting your resentment, putting your anxiety away, and saying, will you please forgive me? Asking for forgiveness is a whole lot harder than saying, I'm sorry, shouldn't have done it. Because then you have to humble yourself. Then you have to admit that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I had something here I was holding against you in this bag and I had to get it out. I'm going to unpack it here with you. If you want to do something scary to help you overcome your fears in this area, go to the people that love you the most. Go to the people that are closest to you and ask them this question. Do you feel loved by me? Do you feel loved by me? And I want you to answer honestly. Do you feel loved by me? I did that to my sisters, my youngest sister. She said, well, I've always known you love me. I said, that's not what I asked you. Do you feel loved by me? Well, you've always been there for me. Sister, do you feel loved by me? She said, do you know how hard it was to follow you into high school? The Redwine, you're a senior going out. Here I am coming in. You know what it was like to walk and live in your shadow? You've always been the best at everything you've done. You've always been, my goodness, it's hard to walk in your shadow. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't know that my life was doing that to you. I didn't realize my impact. My wife and I were talking about it as we were driving over here. I said, how's my being a driven, pushless impact I want to have? How does it impact you? She goes, I'll let you do what you like to do. But I'm a very strong individual, living in a very introverted South Carolina. So I went to my older sister. I said, sister, she's the one that had a lot of trouble as a teenager. I said, sister, do you feel loved by me? Nope. I mean, I'm in my 40s when I'm doing this. I said, you don't? Nope, never have. Well, I think it's time we fix that. We resolved the issue, which is back again in her teen years, and I won't go into that. But I had to get in and ask her that simple question, or she would have kept her resentment, because she had resentment toward me. For all those years from 17 until in my 40s, folks, that I never knew she had until I asked that question. So you want to have a question that will change your life? Get past your fears, ask the people, do you feel loved by me? And ask them to honestly answer. It's powerful. Ask your kids that. Ooh, ask my daughters. Why? Because we hide behind these walls that we've built up to protect ourselves and to hold people off, and we will push them away, and they say, well, that's just how Dad is. You ever hear that? Well, you know, Mom. Because we're not honest in relationships with each other. We build these walls, we build these protections, we have things in our bag. Let me ask you another thing. Got any secrets hidden in here? Oh, friends, family secrets are deadly. How many times have I heard, I'm going to take it to my grave? But family secrets are an underlying anxiety that continues to grow generation to generation till somehow that is unpacked and opened up and that secret comes out. Sometimes there's sexual molest in the past. Sometimes there's abuse. Sometimes there's abandonment. And it gets really messy inside that bag because it spills out inside there and the bag has to be cleaned up. But one of the greatest builders of internal anxiety is unresolved things from the past that are family secrets that have never been unpacked. And folks, if there's one thing I've learned through my 44 years of being a therapist, that's one of the greatest things I can do for a family. is unpack those family secrets and set the generations free. Because the sins of the father and mother are visited down to the third and fourth generations, but the blessings of God are visited to the thousands of generations. Whew. Think about that. Those that love and are called by him. So look at your bag. Got any things you've never told your spouse? Got anything you've never told your parents? Got anything you've never admitted to anyone else? Folks, we begin then to live in the if-onlys of life. There's a great story in the Bible of Mary and Martha and Lazarus in the tomb, and they called Jesus, and he didn't come, and Mary goes there and says, or Martha goes there and says, Lord, if you'd have been here. Then Mary hears he's there, and she runs out and says, Lord, if you'd have been here. And what they're really saying to him was, if you'd have been a better Jesus. If you'd only come when we called you to come, if you'd only been God the way we wanted you to be God, if you'd only showed up when we wanted you to show up, if you'd have been a better Jesus, our brother wouldn't have died. Now stop and think about that. What a bold thing to say to Jesus. But don't we do that? Don't we do that in relationships? If you'd only. Folks, if onlys, they're deadly in relationships. But what we have to realize is that what's what we're talking about here, this is an internal, at the soul level, spiritual battle. Now, I call myself a theological therapist or therapeutic theologian because I believe you cannot separate out the spiritual from physical, mental, and emotional things. And as a therapist all my life, I've never hidden the fact that I'm a Christian. But I will talk to someone and I will say, wow, that's a deep soul level thing you're bringing out here. They've never thought about their soul. Well, what do you mean by soul? I said it's at the deep core of who you are. It's a very basic foundation of your creation. It's not the heart level. What happened to you as an infant, as a child, has so shaped your worldview, how you feel about people, that we got to get back and heal you back. And I've had people go back to get healing at the point before they're able to talk. Or I get them back, I've been to work with them, and they become silent. They can't speak it because it was pre-verbal for them. There are wounds that occur in the womb for kids that are unbonded, that you have to work past all this presuppositions about life and get back to the healing of the real heart and wound. Am I loved? Is there a God who is good? Can he love me? See, these are deep spiritual issues that happen. We want to keep it out here because we don't look at the fact that maybe our frustration, we're trying to turn it into a fruit of the Spirit and trying to live with it as if it's part of our life and we should have it. Come on, little phone. So I want to go over some of the lies we tell ourselves, we paralyze ourselves with. So look at these. I don't know what to do. Really? Well, when in your life did you not know what to do? I mean, come on, we're all very intelligent people, but we'll get to the point where we tell ourselves, I don't know what to do. There's no way to solve this. Really? No way to solve it. Praying doesn't work. Nothing's going to make a difference. We begin future telling. Well, if I go and do that, they're just going to be mad at me anyway. Well, if I try to bring it up, they probably won't show. If I ask them to come, they'll never make it. We begin to already solve the problem before we even try to solve the problem. Well, we dismiss it. We don't give responsibility back to the person that we're reaching out that maybe they're going to respond to us. Like my sister after 30 years. But if I hadn't reached out, well, if I do it, she'll be mad at me. She's going to stay mad at me anyway. So I just want to do it. We begin to future tell. And it'll all work out if I just do nothing. Come on, how many of you said that? It'll all work out. Give it time. I'm sorry, but resentment does not work out with time. It takes action. And why does it matter? Folks, why would we lie to ourselves? See the reality problem here? Why would you lie to you? You know it's not going to all work out if you do nothing. How many of you are avoiding conflict? You like to avoid conflicts. Come on, I want to see some honesty here today. Some of you don't like conflicts. Why? Why do you avoid conflict? I will confess, I'm not conflict avoidant. I want to get down to the issues and solve things. But why is it we tell ourselves it's okay just to avoid it? Oh, it'll all work out. Well, if I do say something, it'll never make change. No, those are lies we tell ourselves. And if you're okay with lying to yourself, you got to ask yourself, why am I okay with that? Would you take a lie from your child? Would you take a lie from a friend? Would you take a lie from a neighbor? No, how dare you lie to me? But you'll take a lie from yourself. This is what anxiety does for you. It changes your reality and your concept to think that you're right even when you're wrong. Amazing, isn't it? So you're paralyzed. But Jesus said this strange thing. I don't know why he did it. It's like, why would you say something like this? Jesus, God, stirring things up for us. Why would you tell us that the truth will set you free? Did he really mean that? I mean, come on. Was he just trying to get the disciples and people to feel better? No. If he said it and it's true, regardless of whether or not Jesus said it or not, will the truth set you free? Yes or no? What if it creates a bigger conflict? Will it set you free? Yes or no? What if somebody stays mad at me? Will it set you free? It's not about, you're not responsible to change somebody else. You cannot change them ever on a single day on your best. The only person you can change is. So the question is, will the truth set you free? Now, would you rather be in bondage? Would you rather be all tied up in knots? Would you rather be all in a nervous wreck? Or would you actually rather be free of anxiety? You think, well, I don't know. Maybe I'd rather be free. Then we have to trust that we can be free. So we're going to look at this. Then we're going to let's take a break. Yep, about time for a break. Let's go through this one here, and then we'll pick it up on the other side. Anxiety produces anger. Anger produces resentment. And this is the time that we already talked about. We kind of play God and we make it an idol. But God has a Sabbath response, and I want you to see this. God says on 6 days you work, right? 10 Commandments. These are the 10 Commandments. Are they still valid for us today? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt have no other God before me, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, thou shalt not make any images, honor your father and your mother. They're still. He says, honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And God gave us a way, I think, to address anxiety. Stop! On the Sabbath day, stop. You have anxiety? Stop. Well, it's easy for you to say, well, God said to do it. I'm not saying it. He's telling you to stop. And what are you supposed to do on the Sabbath after you stop work? After you stop working on things, you're supposed to do what? You're supposed to rest. We've lost the wonder of this. Maybe I'm just going to stop. How many of y'all have a rocker? I was speaking up in Canada. I asked them to give me a rocking chair. They didn't know what a rocking chair was. I mean, seriously. They brought a chair from a house that had a little shuttle in it. I said, you don't have a rocking chair? I want to tell you, folks, a lot I learned about theology and therapy was sitting in a rocking chair on the front porch. In a small town, 250 people, no air conditioning. We were out on our porches all summer long. I'd go over and I'd sit. If you're selling with someone who's 80 or 90 years old, you better not be hyper. I'd sit. I remember across the street from me was Johnny Simmons, and Mr. Simmons was in really great shape, and he was a wonderful man. What a dear, dear man. And I was sitting there with him one day. I said, Mr. Simmons, I know your son always has to come over and pick you up. Why don't you have a car? Well, son, there's a story to that. Now, if you're sitting in a rocking chair and someone says there's a story to that, you listen. I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old. He says, back in the day, I was a teacher, I was a principal. And I was driving home one day in a snowstorm, a blinding snowstorm in my Model T. And I didn't know it, but up ahead of me, there was a man that ran off the road in his Model A, and he was stuck in a ditch. He got on the road. He was walking through the snowstorm, and I was reaching outside my window doing this with the windshield wipers trying to see through this blizzard. I didn't see him. I hit him and I ran him over. I killed him. So, Mr. Simmons, that's a horrible story. He said, I vowed on that day that my privilege to drive a car is never worth another man's life, and I quit driving, and I'll never drive a car again. So, Mr. Simmons, that was an accident. People don't understand. I said, I know. I know it was an accident. But I have no right to have a privilege that takes a man's life. As I heard that story, you think he went through anxiety that night, he hit that man and killed him? You think he didn't run that through his mind over and over and over and over again? But he chose to act. He didn't choose to sit. As he told me this story, it was very clear to me that his trauma had turned to testimony. When the anxiety out of our trauma, folks, becomes a testimony in our life, we can tell our story. He said, from then on, whenever I got a job at a school, I made sure I lived close enough to walk. I walk down the street, I'd take the kids out of this house. Come on, join me, put my arm around them, take the kids out of this house, come on. I'd bring all those kids into school. At the end of the day, I'd walk them home, tussle their head, and send them on their way. I realized even then, he touched more kids' lives by walking like Jesus than they did by driving for convenience. Every moment in life, folks, can become an opportunity for God to get you to walk again. And maybe anxiety is God's way of trying to get your attention to get you to rest. If you go and you sit in a rocking chair long enough, what's going to happen to you? Second word up there, peace. If you sit in a rocking chair long enough, especially maybe it's out underneath the tree or it's in a swing, everyone should have a place in their yard, someplace you can go and just be alone and just sit there. And as long as you sit there, guess what? You're going to start thinking about memories. God's going to give you a mind. You're going to remember, remember the time I was sitting here and kids climbed the tree or whatever it be. And a little bit you know, all of a sudden a smile is going to come to your face and your joy is going to return. But you can keep running around the house and worrying about your bag and everything else, or God says at the Sabbath, stop. Take a Sabbath from your worry. Take a Sabbath from your fear. Take a Sabbath. Stop. Rest. Let peace come. And you'll remember how good peace felt. Because, folks, you got to get your joy back. As a therapist, many times I've worked with people and I've said to them, when did you lose your joy? I can't tell you how many people can name the exact day and time they lost their joy. I said, you've been suffering without joy for 37 years? Let's get your joy back. Let's get your joy back. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 6. We're going to then begin to unpack some depression. But let's take a break. Let's take a break. The restrooms are right behind this back wall here where the tech is. And we have plenty of coffee and donuts over here on the side. So get up, stretch. I know it kind of hits you kind of high. I have heavy stuff here. This is stuff we need to talk about, though, right? And if some of you leave, I'll understand. But it's okay. I'm hoping that this has been of help to you. So let's take a break.